In our ever-changing climate, we face the reality of extreme weather conditions becoming part of our everyday lives. At South East Water, our business is intrinsically linked with the environment within which we operate. We work in an area of water stress, and we have a high reliance on groundwater, as around 73% of our water supplies come from underground aquifers. Our job is not only to manage the resilience of raw water within the environment, but understand both current and future threats to it as well. Only then can we be confident of supplying our customers with the safe, sustainable and reliable water supplies they need, not just for the next 5 years, but for future generations too. In early 2018, we saw extreme cold followed by a rapid thaw, which caused havoc for many water companies across the country. Thousands of customers were left without water in what turned out to be one of the biggest supply incidents we've had to deal with at South East Water. A long hot summer followed, making surface water abstraction difficult for farmers and water companies alike. The dry weather also increased soil moisture deficits for us in the southeast, meaning that the recharge of our groundwater supplies came much later in that year. However, it's not only dry summers that are the problem. Between 2010 and 2012, we had 2 dry winters, leading to drought permits and drought orders being imposed by a number of water companies. This was followed by some of the wettest months on record, leading to flooding in 2013 across the South East Water area, particularly in Yalding and Maidenhead. During this time, our water treatment works at Tunbridge was flooded. These are just a few examples of the clear change in climate that we are experiencing. It's now more important than ever for us as a water company to make sure we're prepared for the future. Working to make catchments more resilient for droughts, making sure that the environment has enough water for ecosystems, and making sure that we have the water supply our customers need as we adapt to climate change. We have a long history of managing catchments. For example, at Friston in Sussex, we've been protecting water quality and quantity for over 100 years. More recently, we've begun working with farmers to deliver catchment management schemes to ensure that there's no deterioration in raw water quality from a number of the areas that we abstract water from. This work can also help wider environmental resilience. However, we can't do this alone and need to develop long-term relationships with our partners to ensure the water security for everyone in the future.
My name is Ian Margits. I am the farm manager here at Moulshanger. Moulshanger Estates, 2,500 acres in Hampshire. At Moulshanger we've been growing cover crops for quite a number of years, and we've used them to enhance the environment, but we've become more involved since we've been involved with South East Water. There's a lot of nitrogen you put onto the ground, 40% of it is still lurking in the soils. So we're using cover crops primarily to capture that nitrogen. We're sat on an aquifer, we're in 2 catchment areas for South East Water, so it's important to us to protect the resources. Primarily we're using a lot of oil radish that is very, very good at capturing nitrogen, but we're also putting in other species as well. We will be looking at different mixes that we can put into the ground that are going to do more benefits than just capture nitrogen. Primarily we want to capture that nitrogen, but also we want to improve the soil health. You cannot deny that we are in clearly some form of change, be it climatic change or seasonal change. We are having different rain events, and those rain events tend to be heavy. Now we have to try and mitigate some of those issues by establishing crops into ground that is in very good order. The cover crops are going to help us produce a healthy soil, and if you have a healthy soil, that crops can then stand more stress, and that stress might be drought. Conversely, also aids with moisture retention when we do have these large rain events, that we can actually rely on our soils to maintain that water, hold that water, not just let it run through into the aquifer. Ultimately, we want water to get into the aquifer, but we want to do it slowly so our plants can take advantage of grabbing that water and all that moisture. With the climate changes that are undoubtedly happening, be they droughts, be they long wets, our soils can cope with it. That is what I'm hoping.
My name's Will Smith. I'm a partner in Butte Agri, and it's a farming business. We're a mixed farm with arable and livestock. About 5-10 years ago we started practicing zero tillage. There were some huge benefits. We're reducing the amount of herbicides we use. One of the most expensive inputs in farming is in nitrogen fertiliser. We were potentially wasting 40% of it. Now with the introduction of cover crops, we are capturing nitrogen that otherwise would have been lost and basically getting healthier soils. We basically build biomass, mopping up that excess nitrogen, which is good because we're locking that nitrogen, turning it into organic matter. That organic matter will then also help water use efficiency by holding water. One of the major issues of establishing anything late in the spring is water. If there's not enough water in the seedbed, it won't germinate. Cultivating in the spring, you lose a huge amount of surface water. Seedbeds are completely dried out because you've dried them out by turning the soil over. So yeah, we direct drill our maize. We've had some exceptionally hot summers over the last 3 or 4 years, hitting 30 degrees in June, and many maize crops tend to wilt and die off. The direct drilled maize has just carried on growing because we haven't lost that crucial moisture, and yielded or even out yielded the conventionally planted maize crops.
I'm Dan Burdett. I farm with my dad Jeremy at Cockhays Farm just outside Haywards Heath. Nutrient runoff is a big issue for us, so we started now with the help of South East Water planting hedges and trees on the slopes to capture any runoff, any nutrients. It can be quite dry in the summer, so we're trying to store as much water in the soil from the winter. It always works better if farmers work together in groups. It's great if I do things here, but if my neighbours aren't doing the same thing, then it loses that benefit. If there's 2 or 3 of us who all work together, it works really well. Climate change, it affects all of us. We're noticing now extremes of weather that we're getting. So what we need to do is build in some resilience within what we grow. Being an organic farmer, I guess the main difference would be that we don't have a quick fix. So we have to look after our soils. We have to look at what's happening to our nutrients. The concrete sleeper tracks, they have allowed us access to paddocks at times of year that we wouldn't have been able to access. With the rainwater harvesting, it's allowed us for 3 of the roofs here to take that water and that goes straight into our cow drinking system. We've got a ditch down alongside our main track with a sediment trap at the bottom of it, and that has stopped puddling of waters at the bottom there. It stopped vehicles driving through water and carrying all that sediment down over the bridge. The partnership that we have with catchment sensitive South East Water and a number of other bodies, there's a mutual thing that we're working hand in hand. It's something that benefits both parties. The feeling that we get is that it's not a short-term 3-year project. Yeah, we feel really confident that when we make longer-term plans for other features on the farm which are going to benefit both us and South East Water, that we know that that support's going to be there. By putting in hedgerows and things like that here, we're not actually impacting on the area of grassland, but we know we're going to be benefiting the wildlife and the diversity on the farm. We control this amazing part of the world, and why shouldn't other people benefit from it? So we want to introduce more people to it. With Brexit and with environmental regulations, etc., that farmers have got to change. Farmers just can't stay the same. Farmers have got to do something different, and they've got to be part of the solution. As a legacy, I'd like to feel that we leave that for my children's generation, maybe even their children's generation.
Despite this work with our farming colleagues, there is more we could do to increase water resources and improve catchment resilience. One of the objectives of the Pro Water project is to build a mapping tool that will help target groundwater infiltration and identify wider environment benefits in the catchment. This will be piloted with 2 of our partners to help us maximise the benefits through targeted ecosystem-based adaptation measures, such as water retention in soils or within streams to slow the flow of water. The project will also help us to quantify the amount of groundwater that is recharged for water provisions. Pro Water is an innovative project, and the outcomes could drive more resilient catchments for droughts, floods, the ecosystem and water consumption for years to come.